Hey guys, it's Smiles with Vigilant Valkyrie. Thank you so much for joining this video. We are so excited for our upcoming event, a Valkyrie Veteran Convention. Here, I'm with Lee. She is a female veteran, and we are so excited to speak with her this evening. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and your military background.
Well, I am a veteran. I spent 3 years and 8 months in the military. Army. Go Army.
Yes, Army.
I was a military policeman, and we're talking 1978 to 1981, when it wasn't real popular for women to be MPs.
Yeah, well, hey, and I'm an MP, so all the way.
Yeah, so it was a bit of a challenge, but I always wanted to be a cop growing up. And I went to my local police station and asked, what I needed to do to become a police officer, and they said, well, you can be a meter maid.
Oh.
And so...
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, that wasn't really what I had in mind. Although my sister did that job, and she did it great, and she loved it.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to be a police officer. My cousin was a police officer, and I always admired that job, and so when I joined the Army and they said that I could do that, that's, what I really wanted to do. So I went to basic and AIT at a time when we were one of the first, or the first platoon of females that went through with the men. And so it was pretty exciting. And and then I was stationed in Germany.
Oh, wow.
And I spent most of my time in the military in Germany, although I did come back and spend a year at the 68th MP detachment at Fort Drum, New York.
Oh, awesome.
And so, I had experiences both overseas and in the States.
Yeah.
And, for the most part, it was a pretty positive experience.
Mm.
I did experience a lot of gender discrimination.
Right.
And some sexual harassment and sexual assault.
Yeah.
Which I think a lot of women experience in the military.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, mine was experienced when I was in basic training from a drill sergeant.
Wow.
And so that was pretty tough to take.
Yeah.
Basic or AIT, I don't remember which, but it was one of those two. We're talking a long time ago because I'm 62 years old. So that wasn't, it wasn't a pleasant experience. I've gotten to the point that I've kind of accepted that that's something that happened to me, and it wasn't necessarily something that I made happen to me.
Of course not.
But I loved being a police officer, and so, I probably would still be in the military if I had a choice.
Yeah.
But, I started having kids, and at that time it wasn't.
You weren't allowed to stay in if you had kids.
Well, I could have, but it wasn't a very popular choice.
Gotcha.
And so, when both spouses were in the military, it was very tough.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't see, I felt that was a greater responsibility, and it was.
Yeah.
I felt it was a greater responsibility to be a parent than to be in the military. I did my time, and I served my full tour plus, but I just thought that if I was going to have children, that I needed to be able to be home for them. So
yeah, and that is, a lot of women decide that, even nowadays when they're in, hey, I'm going to focus on being a mom, and that's absolutely admirable as well. I thank you for going so in depth and being willing to be open and share about your experiences, the good and the bad. And I don't know if you know, some of the VA statistics are that 1 in 4 women that go to the VA report that they have experienced military sexual trauma.
Well, and I've actually filed with the VA and I just haven't completed my filing because it feels like that was 40-some years ago, and it's kind of hard to go in and
relive it, essentially. Yeah, it's not easy. Not easy at all.
It's not. But that's one of the reasons I have this guy. He helps with all of that.
And who is this guy?
This guy is Cinder, and Cinder is my service dog. He not only helps me with emotional stuff, but he also helps me with some physical stuff too. Yeah, he's a pretty amazing guy. And Victory Service Dogs really helps me with him. If I didn't have Victory Service Dogs, I don't know what I'd do, because I wouldn't have been able to afford to get a service dog and get him trained. Victory Service Dogs has been just amazing for us, because they make it affordable.
Right.
You know, and actually extremely affordable for veterans to be able to get their service dogs. And I actually, Cinder was donated to me by a breeder in Texas who bred my last standard poodle, who was a pet.
Yeah.
And when she found out I needed a service dog, she donated him to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to afford to get a standard poodle probably unless I found one through rescue.
Yeah.
But, so I got him as a very young puppy. And then I, paid my application fees with Victory Service Dogs, and then they've helped me with training him. And so we've been in training for about 2.5 years.
Wow.
And he just graduated.
Aww.
He just passed all his public access tests and everything. So he's, but he helps me with stability and mobility. I suffer from chronic migraines. I have about 25 headache days a month.
Wow.
And I frequently have vertigo. And so we're working on him helping me, when I'm in the middle of an episode of vertigo, learning to help stabilize me. But he already does quite a bit. And when I have a migraine, he hardly leaves my side.
Wow.
And we're also going to work on him alerting me to migraines. So I
that's
can medicate
amazing.
even earlier.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
And what did some of the trainings look like here with Victory Service Dogs? How does that kind of work?
Well, we started out basically in puppy classes where we were with really young dogs when he was really young. And then it was just like basic obedience, heel, sit, puppy sit-ups, sit down, stand, sit down, stand, and that was really kind of fun. He enjoyed that. And then you try not to get them to where they recognize it. And then once you got, the heeling and the sitting and staying and all that down.
Right.
You can always tell when I'm nervous too, and I'm nervous because I'm on camera. But,
you were doing amazing.
he
You want to hold something?
no, that's okay. Okay. Good boy. Here. Then you sit. Sit. Good boy. Good boy. But once you get all the basic obedience down and he passed his canine good citizen and then his advanced canine good citizen, then you start working on the more complicated things like tucking under your legs in a restaurant and going into a restaurant. We talk about a challenge for a dog.
Yeah.
To go into a restaurant and not try to eat off of everybody's plate in the place.
Yeah.
And just being around all those people.
Yeah.
It's like, can I sniff butts in here?
Right? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And then walking through a mall, and being in a crowded place and being in a crowd and then being around all the other dogs.
Yeah.
It's not like going to a dog park where you set him loose. When he's walking down the street, he's got to learn to focus on you and not focus on the other dogs that are coming towards him. And if you drop the leash, does he take off or does he stay with you? Okay. And so he's got to learn all those things. He's got to learn how to help you through a doorway if you need help through a doorway, or just be by your side when you go through a doorway.
Yeah.
Not every. And so.
Sorry.
Not every place has an automatic door, so you've got to open a door, or you've got to press a button for a handicap door or something like that, and you don't want them charging through the door in front of you. You want them to stay by your side as you go through the door, or even help you through the door.
Yeah. My dog is not good at that. He just runs right ahead. Often trip over him.
Yes, and that's the other thing, tripping you up and down the stairs. You don't want them to do that either.
Yeah.
And so they've got to learn to walk down the stairs next to you, beside you, and not trip you going up and down the stairs.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you need is a broken leg because you tripped over your service dog. And they've got to not be aggressive toward other dogs.
Yeah.
No aggression shown, and they've got to not be a pet. They're,
Yeah.
as somebody told me a couple of weeks ago, they're a medical device.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a living, loving human being, or not a human being, but a living, loving being.
Yeah.
But they're also a medical device, and so you've got to remember that, they're not a pet, although you pet them a lot.
Yeah.
But they're they're important to to your well-being.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do without it now.
So, you were in a time where you said that women were just integrating into trainings alongside the men.
Yes.
And so with that, it's crazy for me that we're now in 2021 and there are still so many challenges that women face in the military. And there's still so many, I feel like, commonalities as to when you went through, not necessarily the newness of integrating women training with men, although the Marines did just do that and it's 2021, but support systems. Would you say that you had any type of support system while you were in the military?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything for female soldiers. We didn't even have any real examples of, I had a female drill sergeant, but I think only because, there were female soldiers.
Yeah.
I don't think that she was an MP. But I don't remember any female leadership in my history in the military.
Wow.
Because, I was blocked from even doing an E5. I got to Spec 4 and that was all the further that I was basically allowed to be.
Wow.
Because, they just didn't want women to
move up and be a
well,
part
they
of it.
didn't want you to take a man's place.
Oh, okay.
I had a desk sergeant at one point who made me check in, radio check every half an hour to see if I was breathing heavy because he didn't believe that a woman could be in a car with a man for an 8-hour shift without having sex.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And he actually expected women to just, and it was common for women in the MP Corps to be the desk clerk or the
Secretary, essentially.
or radio operator.
Yeah.
It was very common
Yeah.
that would be what you do.
Yeah.
So, there wasn't really a support system for women at that time, other than each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I can say that I'm definitely grateful that nowadays I've got some great brothers that I serve alongside of. And there's definitely, I feel like, a lot less of that gap between the men and women that serve alongside each other, but there still is a gap. And they just, opened up combat MOSs or combat jobs in 2016. And so that is still, even in 2021, an adjustment for a lot of our brothers that we serve alongside. Some of them still have not served alongside a woman. And then in regards to a support system, although there's so many different, organizations offered in the military, like things that they offer to help and stuff like that, there's still not, I feel, support systems that soldiers need and that women need. It's just, even though it's 2021, and I'm sure in a lot of ways it's a lot different than when you served, there are still a lot of challenges that we face. I've been sexually harassed, I've been sexually assaulted, I've, experienced, it's different but similar, and it's 2021, and so it is absolutely crazy that our women service members are still having to go through the things that they have to go through. Not to discredit any of the challenges that our brothers face, but it's different in a lot of ways. So you shared with us what led you kind of to get a service dog. You have shared with how that's kind of helped you. And how old is he now again?
He'll be 3 in September.
Oh, that is so exciting.
Yeah.
What support system do you have, and I take notes as everybody knows, what support system do you have as a veteran?
Right now, my main support system is Victory Service Dogs, and they have a luncheon every other week for the women
Yeah.
that are veterans or that have service dogs here, and we meet, every other week for lunch. And they do a lot of fundraising events, and I try to attend every one. that I can. And there's a Tuesday night event too that I haven't been able to get to yet, just because I work better in the daytime.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, nighttime I start to feel my age. But, and then, you know, I also have a couple of friends that are veterans.
Yeah.
And, you know, so, you know, I communicate with them as well. And social media is a support system as well.
Awesome.
You know,
So for one of my last questions here, what more in the veteran community would you like to see be done for and offered to women veterans?
I'd like to see a lot more in the way of support. And, you know, reaching out, you know, you and I talked before we started this about, well, and even when we were doing this, we talked about, you know, women veterans, you know, experiencing the sexual assaults and things like this. And for me, like I said, it's been 40 years, and I still don't feel really comfortable, you know, reaching out and talking about it, or even reporting it. You know, it's like, you know, what proof do I have? You know, when you look at the paperwork for what they want, it's like, you know, that's not something that you think of keeping.
Yeah.
You know, you know, they want some kind of proof. Well, how do you prove something like that?
Report, and even if you did report,
if I would have reported, what would have happened to me is I would have been discharged and he would have been promoted.
Yep, and that is unfortunately fairly similar to what more often than not happens nowadays. Not necessarily the female being discharged or, you know, the survivor being discharged, but moved, and their career jeopardized or facing more obstacles, or kind of having it where the unit turns against that survivor because they're like, oh, well, that other service member would have never done something like that. You must have been lying, you know. And I feel that that's one of the...
That happens so often with sexual assault in any case.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and then I understand where the VA, as an example, would want to ensure that it's not somebody just trying to make such a claim. But at the same time, it is so difficult to go through that process and like you said, have that proof. Like, what, you know, it's a difficult process, and I don't know how it would be changed, but it's just frustrating that is the process that you have to go through to get the additional support that you deserve.
Right. And it's such an emotional thing. I mean, you know, you start to feel like, well, I must have done something to deserve it.
Right.
You know, I must have, you know, because that's how you're made to feel.
Yeah, and it's the furthest thing from the truth. You know, nobody deserves that, men or women, because, you know, men do get assaulted as well in the military. They just report it way less than females do, and not all females report it. And it's just...
Well, and I have to say, too, that I did get, you know, there were men that were part of my support system in the military. You know, I had a lot of support from a lot of my male counterparts when I was an MP. Some that just were not supportive at all, you know, that weren't there, but most of them were there.
Yeah.
And most of them looked at what the old school guys were doing and saying, you know, this was not right.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm still in contact with a lot of the guys from my unit.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is absolutely
You know,
awesome.
that's one of the wonders of social media.
Yeah, right?
You get the opportunity to be in touch with people that you were with. You know, I mean, I'm talking 40 years ago, and I still have contact with a lot of those soldiers.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that about social media, too. I've got a lot of friends. I'm just a reservist. Well, not just, but I'm a reservist. But I've got a lot of friends that are active duty. I got some brothers in the Marines and across the branches, and social media has been able to keep us connected. And that's a great thing because we've experienced similar things or went to schools and trainings and deployments together. Even though we're all spread out across the world, we're still able to remain in contact. And as you said, that's great. I've had some wonderful brothers in the military that I've served alongside, and sisters. But it's sad to me that at least in nowadays experience, the women tend to tear each other down more than most of the men. I don't know what's up with that.
I don't either.
But that's one reason why I'm so glad. I have Vigilant Valkyrie, which is something that I don't know if you know. I started that in 2018. And my big reasons for starting that is I'm so passionate about serving in the military. I'm passionate about being a woman in the military. And I'm passionate about the good and bad experiences I've had. I've had a lot of awful experiences through my almost 8 years of being in. And so I really felt that there was a need for an organization that specifically strives to meet the needs of women veterans and service members. Whether you're in or out, we are looking to support you. And so our organization does meetups twice a month in the evenings, but that's for female veterans only. We try to offer a safe place just to connect, camaraderie, support, and we do a lot of different events, as our followers and stuff know. And so that is just part of why I was like, Vigilant Valkyrie. I didn't even have a name at the time, but I was like, something needs to be done. Something more needs to be done for women veterans to meet their needs, to recognize the over 2 million women veterans that have served and are serving our country, and just the unfairness that happens to service members, and that a lot of times if a service member either reports sexual assault or reaches out for mental health help, they have then ended their career simply for asking for help. And so I am so big on, since I am still ensuring that my soldiers are educated on the resources they have outside of the military that will not jeopardize their career. Because I'm very big on, just because you may need to take a knee doesn't mean you're out of the fight. And it's okay to ask for help. Unfortunately, if you're civilian, you just have to be smart about who you go to ask for that help.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and it's really sad that we can't get help within the confines of the military.
Yeah.
But, even guys don't get a
Same.
lot of help.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, it's this, and especially for the mental health stigma, it's the same across the board. That stigma, male, female, it's the same. And that's heartbreaking, and it's crazy that
And especially with what folks in the military are going through today.
Yeah.
My heart goes out for every vet or every soldier that served in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
With what's happened in the last week and a half.
Yeah, most definitely.
It's got to be heartbreaking for them.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends. I was not in Afghanistan. I was elsewhere over in the Middle East, but I have a lot of close friends that were in Afghanistan, and they're having a hard time. And it reminds me, so when we left Iraq, in 2014, I was in basic training, and our drill sergeants, who, as we know, are not really supposed to show emotion and be professional at all times, they came in and some of them were crying, and it was tears of anger and wrath because the city or town of Mosul that they, told us, they're like, my brothers have died there, my sisters have died there, and we have left, and it has gone right back to ISIS. And that's essentially what's happening with Afghanistan. We've had our brothers and sisters fight there, fight Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, and then now we leave and the Taliban just takes it right back over. And so it's such an emotional time.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to see places where so many people have died to try to give them what they wanted.
Right.
And now it's just
right back to where they were like 20 years ago, essentially, is what it has seemed like from what I've read.
My grandfather, my father, myself, and my son have all served in the military.
Wow.
And so, it's a legacy for us.
Yeah.
And it's very hard. And luckily, my son didn't ever have to deploy. But, he didn't serve overseas, he served stateside.
Yeah.
But, it's a tough thing to, many friends and relatives, and, it's a tough situation.
Yeah, it really is. So, on that note, I do want to say to those that are going to be watching this video, as she mentioned, Victory Service Dogs does a luncheon every other week for female veterans specifically, and if you would like more information about that, we'll go ahead and share it in the comments, and we'll tag Victory Service Dogs. As most of you know, we also do meetups through Vigilant Valkyrie at the Enlisted Association Chapter 1, which is another amazing veteran nonprofit here in Colorado Springs, and that's for just female veterans as well. To our brothers, we don't want you to feel like you're left out. There are a lot of other meetups here locally. You are more than welcome to join our social media platforms and support each other there. And we are just so grateful to have spoken with you this evening, Lee. And we are excited, as we shared with you, about our upcoming event, September 25th, Valkyrie Veteran Convention. And our theme for that, I don't know if you're aware, is the Unseen Warrior. And that is to depict that there are over 2 million women veterans, and people don't realize that. They don't know that. We make up about 11% of the U.S. service now, and that's going to be increasing substantially. So we are trying to make the Unseen Warrior seen through this event. That event is being put on by Vigilant, Valkyrie, Victory Service Dogs, and the Enlisted Association. We have come together to help better the veteran community and meet the needs of female veterans, as well as honor them. And so with that, I would love to absolutely give you this ticket to our event on September 25th. And we were so excited, like I said, to meet you, speak with you, meet Cinder, and just hear about your military experiences and the assistance you've had from your service dog and what that's done for you in your healing journey.
It's been wonderful, and I give all credit to Victory Service Dogs, God, and Cinder. You know.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, guys.